Rec Room has needed a new Watch UI for years, and just a couple days ago, Rec Room made a blog post where they announced that they were making a new Watch UI called the Widget Watch. And on top of that, a bunch of people, including myself, were able to playtest an early version of the Watch UI, as well as provide feedback directly to the developers working on it. So, with me being me, I managed to make 9 different unofficial concepts for the new Watch UI, going from small fixes to major additions. And in this video, I want to talk about why I made these concepts, and at the end, I'll talk about my current thoughts on the new Watch UI. If you enjoyed this video, then please go to my profile at Werewolf and press the big support button. I would really appreciate it. And with all of that being said, first I want to talk about what the new Watch UI is. As I said earlier, the new Watch UI is called the Widget Watch, and it is a much simpler version of the Watch UI we have currently. As I'm making this video, we only got access to see the new home menu so far, and there are actually 2 tabs for the home menu, the quick access panel and the portal panel. The quick access panel shows you stuff like what room you're in, who's in your party, some of your online friends, a recommended for you tab, stuff like that. And the portal panel is pretty much your regular home menu with your usual things like challenges, the store, stuff like that. The Watch UI also appears more to the left of your screen than in the middle of it, which is pretty unique, though it could take a bit of getting used to, and I can see some people not liking this. If you want to know more about the Widget Watch, I'll link the blog post that Rec Room made about it down below, so I'd recommend giving that a read, because next I want to talk about the 9 concepts that I made to improve the Widget Watch, starting with the simple fix that I saw get brought up a ton while we were testing it out. You see, on screen mode on the top left, there's an X that allows you to exit out of the menu. The only problem is that by clicking anywhere that's not a part of the Watch UI, even in the old watch, it will exit the watch menu, making this X pretty much useless. So this concept that I made shows the Widget Watch without the X. I swear the concepts get so much better than this, but this was driving me insane after it got mentioned, so I figured, hey, why not make this, you know? Something else I saw get mentioned quite a bit is something that I wasn't really expecting. I saw a few people say that they wish the watch looked more 80s themed, since Rec Room takes place in 1987, and I guess that does make sense since the Widget Watch does look pretty modern, but I'll be honest, I had no idea how to even start making it 80s themed, so I decided to make 2 concepts for this. The first is just a simple pixel UI. I don't really know if this counts as 80s themed, but it's something, I guess. And the second is an entirely different retro 80s style for the buttons, and I decided to only change one button, the play button, for this concept, because if I did all the buttons, first of all, that would take forever, and second, I don't even know where I would start with that, to be honest. Next, though, I want to talk about something that was in the old Watch UI, being able to see your token count. You see, in the new Watch UI, there is no way to see how many tokens you have unless you go into the store page. And I will admit, this does make sense, and I don't really see Rec Room changing this, or even people actually wanting this. But with that being said, I like being able to see my token count in the home menu, as it's just pretty useful, especially with how many expensive items come out these days. Which is why I made this concept that shows a counter of how many tokens you have in the home menu. It's very simple, but it's just something that was in the old watch that I think could improve the new watch, and the same can be said for the next thing I want to talk about, that being the dorm room button. You see, you don't automatically see the dorm room button in your watch. It does exist, but from what I've seen, it only appears when you're not in your dorm, which does make sense, but it also removes the rec center button that exists, and also the icon for the dorm room button doesn't really scream dorm room button to me, and also I just don't like it. So that's why I made a concept for having both a rec center button as well as a dorm room button, and I also went ahead and made a new icon for the dorm room button that matches with the rest of the icons, and off script, I am so proud of how the dorm room button came out. Like, I love it so much. So going back on script, let's next talk about something that I know drove a few testers insane, including myself, and it has to do with this weird empty space that the Widget Watch has. Don't get me wrong, sometimes less is more, but in this case, I really wish they could have somehow fixed this weird space that the Play widget has, because I know a few of the testers didn't really like it all that much, because I was one of them. Which is why I decided to fix it myself, not by adding any new buttons, but by making one of the existing buttons bigger, that being the Play menu button. I think this makes the most sense to try and fix this weird space without completely redoing the layout of it or adding any new buttons, especially since I can't really think think of any other buttons they could add to it. And plus, most people use the play menu all the time, so it only makes sense to have that button be the biggest, right? Anyways, next up, I want to talk about something that I know a few people didn't like about the old watch, that being the colors. You see, the first watch we had was very colorful, and when we switched over to the second watch, a few people didn't like how colorless it was compared to the old watch. And they did kind of fix this, but now we have the Widget Watch, which is completely monochrome. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. I personally kind of like it, but I was curious as to how it would look if all the buttons were colored differently instead of them all being orange. So I decided to make these two concepts that make both parts of the home menu have different buttons, and I gotta say, I like it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I do hope they do something like this, but I would understand if they decide not to go for it, because honestly, the monochrome is fine in my opinion. And if they decide not to go for this, then I think a better solution has to do with my second to last concept that I made, which is very similar to this. You see, a while ago I made concepts for what it would look like in the old watch if you could change the colors of it, similar to other games that let you change the UI color like Fallout. I honestly really like the idea of this, and with the new Widget Watch releasing, I thought it would be cool to recreate that concept by making a pink Widget Watch. I honestly think this looks sick. I really hope they decide to add something like this, as I know a lot of people would really enjoy this. And this last one is something else that I think should be added, and it's something that is completely new, that being pins. The idea is that you could pin certain buttons or different consumable objects like your camera or a food item onto your quick access panel so that it takes less time to go to those buttons or consumable items when you need them. I think this would just be very useful for players. Like, imagine being able to pin like the clothing board and just be able to pull it out super easily instead of having to go to your backpack every time. Or another example could be pinning cheese pizza and just be able to pull out pizza like super easily. That would be so cool. But with that being said, now I want to take a second and talk about what I think of the Widget Watch, because I have some thoughts. I have not played with it in VR, as we didn't have access to VR. We only had access to it on screen mode, so I only played with it on screen mode, and on there, I honestly really like it. It has a few things that I think could be changed, like the things I made concepts about, but all in all, I think it's 100 times better than the Watch UI we have right now. There are so many positives that I can think of, but the one positive that I want to say here is that when I personally played with it, I barely had any lag. And compared to the watch we have right now, which is without a doubt a laggy mess, that is a huge improvement in my opinion. Also, I'm still able to make concepts with the new UI, as you have seen in this video, so that's also a huge plus in my opinion. And with all that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then you might like this video where I made a bunch of concepts that would improve Rec Room drastically.